guys, welcome to RAE'S Reactions. So this is my movie review of the new Ghostbusters film. But before I start, I just want to briefly mention that the 1984 movie was iconic. It was a cult classic. It still is. It's still regarded as one of the best films of the 80s, if not one of the best films that's ever been made, in terms of everything that there was about that original film. You know, the characters and the actors involved and the story. It was a new concept. It was a new type of genre that everyone got involved with and still do to this day. And the appreciation for that film is tenfold. It's something that will never ever go away, and it shouldn't, because it is a classic movie. It can be regarded as a classic movie because of everybody involved in it and everything that it stands for in terms of its writing and its production and just the fact that it was such a great film to watch, and still is to this day, ever since its release in 1984. Having said that, my review now for the new Ghostbusters film is going to be pretty much along the same sort of lines. And what I mean by that is that there's been a lot of reservation about the new Ghostbusters movie over the last, year or so, especially when the trailer started coming out, when the news started coming out of who was being involved in the film, who wasn't going to be involved in the film, what direction it was taking, and also when the trailers started to filter through, there was a lot of misogyny, where it was pretty much expressed that the Ghostbusters of 1984 was 4 men, and that you can't steer away from that concept and that sort of structure for this type of movie, for Ghostbusters themselves. So when 4 female characters were introduced as the 4 new Ghostbusters, it caused a lot of confliction, and a lot of that resonated through so much social media and so much hatred for the movie before it had even begun, or even before people had seen the trailers that had come out. People were just making their minds up on the spot. Having said that, it wasn't all just about the female cast as opposed to the male cast. It was how can you create a new Ghostbusters movie? How can you potentially follow it up? At that time, there was a lot of speculation whether or not it was going to be a sequel as such, or whether it was going to be a full-fledged reboot of the franchise. And despite all the obstacles that people had created in an excuse not to watch the new movie, under those circumstances, it steered it in a bad direction, and people were optimistic about what to expect from the film, and they didn't know whether or not they should even go and watch it in the first place. I know that I have reservations solely on the fact that the original movie is a classic in my eyes, and it always will stand the test of time as that. The 80s for me was probably the decade of the most influential and most imaginative movies that have ever come out of the industry. But my reservations came from the sole aspect that this was Ghostbusters that they were remaking to some degree. Whether or not it was going to include parts of the characters from the original movies, but overall it was a remake. And a lot of remakes these days don't work. But I'm here to say now, having watched the movie, I think this works. And the reason I think it works is because of the actors and of the story, and the way the movie was put together in such a way that it's breathed new life into something that everyone missed. And that's what Ghostbusters was literally all about. The movie itself from 1984 was such an original movie that when the second one came about, everyone was like, well, they're just trying to copy the first one, and this isn't going to work, and it's not as good as the first one because the first one is the best. But this new Ghostbusters movie really does do something interesting, and that's it makes it work. It makes it work in today's day and age, and it gives you a new interpretation of what you would expect Ghostbusters to be, and by that it's all down to not only the writing for the film, but and the way that they've put these new characters onto the screen. But the four leading ladies do, I think, an exceptional job considering the circumstances they've faced and the backlash of their new Ghostbusters. Now that should never have come about. The four leads, played by Melissa McCarthy, Kate McKinnon, Leslie Jones, and Kristen Wiig, I think are really, really well played. Their characters are fresh. Again, they've got they resonate from the original characters. You can see how they've set these characters up in appreciation of the original characters from the original movies. But these characters take on something new and exciting, and when you watch the film, it gives you choices to make on what you thought of when they originally announced that they was going to make this movie. I had serious reservations about going to see it, and as the trailers started to increase, and we saw one trailer, then another, then another, I didn't think much of them bringing the Ghostbusters back onto our screens. But I'm glad they did, because the actresses who portray these characters make it their own. The story develops in such a way that it doesn't overdo the concept of Ghostbusters. It brings a new originality to it. It gives you new and exciting weapons that the Ghostbusters have as well. The humour in the movie can be considered as very dry at times, but it's being a Paul Feig movie. It's very drawn that way, and that he's itching to add more adult humour to the concept, but obviously they can't because it's a family movie. But the story and the writing, I think, blends very well with the direction that these actresses are taking these characters in, and I think that we've actually got a potential predecessor to the original Ghostbusters film here, because I think all in all I think in a way it actually makes it better than the original Ghostbusters 2. Because yes, you have the cameos from the original actors, which I'll go into more detail in my spoiler review, and you have literally all of them, with the exception of the late Harold Ramis. But I think it's a movie that works. It has the potential to create a new audience for the Ghostbusters, which is something I think everyone wants. Everyone wanted a new Ghostbusters movie, and I think that this does that really, really well. And I think that overall, the younger generation of today are gonna watch this film as their Ghostbusters, and in the next 20, 30 years, when they grow up and they have kids, and then they make another Ghostbusters remake, it will most likely be the same scenario where they'll turn back and go, oh, well, you can't remake that because I thought that was actually a really good film. And that depends on the circumstances of them bringing out a second movie to this one, and whether or not that surpasses their take on the Ghostbusters now. But overall, I thought it was a very, very good film. The actresses did exceptionally well, especially Kate McKinnon, who I think was my favourite out of the four women, the four Ghostbusters, for a zany adaptation of a scientist, and playing Gillian Holtzman wasn't a direct nod to obviously Igor from the original movies, but she'd done a really good job, and obviously all the women did, and they made it work. Chris Hemsworth was a good addition to the cast. I think they overused his character a little bit too much in the movie, and they used a lot of the really dry humour with his character. Hopefully they'll build up on it a little bit more for the sequel, which I'm sure there will be one. But I think they they took it in a direction they didn't really need to towards the end with his character, and they could have made his character a little bit more better than they did. But maybe that was the direction that they were hoping to go. But that I think he was a good addition to the cast, and certainly different from what he's done before. So yeah, I think the movie overall was a good experience. My little girl loved watching it when I took her to watch it, and I think that's the whole idea for a movie like that, for a franchise like that. If you're going to enjoy the film, if you're going to like the original, at least give this one a shot. Give it a go and see what you think. And if you don't like it, then at least you've tried. But in terms of remakes and many remakes that have gone before this, I think this one has been done rather well. Alright guys, well thank you very much for watching my reaction video. And like I say, I'll release a spoiler review shortly. Well, I'll contain a lot more information about the film. Cheers. Bye.